Hi, everybody. This is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology, and I'm sitting down to show you a few more interesting examples of horary charts. I'm doing this because I have a new horary class coming up in July. It starts on July 10th. Early bird rates in effect all the way until July 1st. I highly recommend this class for people who already have a set of natal astrology skills but are looking to sharpen those skills. Horary is amazing for that. I want to show you two examples today that are sort of related to one another. And this is sort of on the almost like the entertainment side of horary. I will tell you, some people use horary for gambling. Some people will use horary charts in order to wager on athletic events or on horse races or all sorts of stuff. I do not do that. In fact, part of my yoga practice involves a vow that we take against gambling in particular. But it's great training to, if you like sports at all, if you follow any team, or with elections, even local elections. There's a type of horary chart called a contest horary. A contest horary looks at who of two opponents will win. And there's a lot of methodology behind this particular type of horary that I can't get into, but I want to show you a few quick examples from the NBA basketball championship and the finals that just took place. The Toronto Raptors won the championship last night. And I want to show you two charts related to that series that are, I think, really fun. So first, I'm going to show you the first chart that I cast, which was just a chart basically looking at the series itself and just saying, you know, will the Raptors win the series? So a very simple thing that you do in horaries for contests is you have to figure out who's who. You have to have a team that you're rooting for that you're going to assign to the ascendant that's you're identified with. If you're not identified with any team, it actually makes it a lot harder because there's no clear way of delineating which team is which sometimes, so it can be trickier. In this case, I'm rooting for Toronto because mostly because I don't like the Warriors. I don't like any dynasty teams that much unless it was something from Minnesota. Never going to happen. But at any rate, if you're not into sports, hang with this because it's actually pretty cool. So in this horary, you will see that the team that I'm rooting for is going to be represented by the ascendant, which is Jupiter. And the opponent is going to be Mercury, the seventh house ruler. So the first house, my team, seventh house, open enemy or opponent. So Jupiter versus Mercury. You'll notice that the two of them are separating from an opposition. They're both in their own signs. They're both in each other's detriment. They're both looking strong. Interestingly, one of the key features of the Golden State Warriors is two players that are considered to be brothers. They're called the Splash Brothers, Klay Thompson and Stephen Curry. So you'll see, interestingly, that the Golden State Warriors are represented by Mercury in the sign of the brothers, the twins. I thought that was really interesting, just as an aside. Sometimes the symbolism just kind of pops like that. But here's, kind of analyzing the situation. Well, look, they both have malefics in their first house, Saturn in the south node, Mars in the north node. So, kind of an even balance of testimonies here. But with Mars in its fall in their house, right, that looks a little bit worse for me than Saturn, which is already of the nature of the south node and in its own sign in the Raptors house. I don't really consider this important testimony to the chart, but I do think that, as I was analyzing it, I noticed that. But here's the big thing that I noticed when I was judging this chart. The big thing when it looks like a pretty even competition, they're both in their own sign, they're both in their own house, they're both, angular. Two things that stood out. One is that Jupiter is incredibly angular. Jupiter is actually within 20 minutes of exactly conjoined with the ascendant and is retrograding, meaning applying to that ascendant, which gives the Toronto Raptors a look and feeling of even greater power. Now, the retrograde may be a little concerning, but all things considered, this looks to be a more powerful Jupiter than Mercury so far. Here's the other thing. Mercury is just about to leave Gemini, which is its home sign. It then enters Cancer, where it no longer has any essential dignity. As it enters Cancer, it also moves into the exaltation of Jupiter. So it loses its dignity and then exalts its opponent. So for this reason, at the outset of the series, I judged that this is precisely how I put it, that something would happen, and that to the Golden State Warriors, that they would fall out of power essentially in the series, that they would lose their power. Now I thought, these are the reigning champions in basketball, so maybe they lose their power in a way that is it just means that their dynasty is sort of ending. But and then because they lose their power, they lift up or exalt the Raptors, and the Raptors win. However, with that retrograde, I thought, I wonder if there might be a little intrigue or drama here with Jupiter retrograde. And those were basically my thoughts, but overall a judgment that the Raptors would win the series. Okay. Now I've successfully predicted pretty much the last 4 or 5 World Series, NBA championships. I think I batted like 900 on all of the primaries between Sanders and Clinton. So it was, this is a very effective method. I've gotten some big ones wrong, like the Clinton-Trump chart that I showed you guys in a previous video, but it's an incredibly effective method for determining who's going to win. Now, so that's the first one, right? Then I wanted to know, more particularly which game it was going to be. So I did one for each game of the series, and I got them all right. And then here's what I thought. In Game 5, Kevin Durant came back from an injury. It looked probably like he had originally sustained an Achilles injury back in May, which would probably knock him out of the rest of the year. And then he tried to come back in Game 5. He played for like 12 minutes and then ruptured his Achilles. So bad choice. At that point, I thought, that's it, game over. Game over, because they've just lost their biggest star. They didn't have him for the first 4 games anyway, but I thought that's got to be the change of dignity from Mercury. Earlier in the series, Klay Thompson was also injured, but he came back. So I thought, surely Kevin Durant going down is it. Okay, so just to kind of catch you up with that. Now, here's last night's horary. This was yesterday afternoon before the game. I said, will the Raptors win tonight? Now, I'm looking at the ascendant ruler for my team, which is the Raptors, which is Mars. Mars is up here in the 9th house with the north node of the moon, and Mercury, right? Now, meanwhile, the Golden State Warriors, represented by the ruler of the 7th house, the open enemy or opponent, is Venus. Now, judging their dignities, we have Venus in a succedent house, which is more powerful than a cadent house. It's kind of in this kind of situation. And Mars is also in its fall. Venus is not in any great dignity, but it's certainly not in its fall. So I was like, oh, looks like there's going to be a Game 7. They're going to force a Game 7, because they had been down 3-1 in the best of 7 series. So it seemed like maybe they were going to force a Game 7. But then I looked and I noticed this. The moon is in the Raptors' house. It's in its fall, another sign of fortune falling against the Raptors. I thought, okay, well, if my original horary is correct, then again, I guess they're going to win in Game 7. But then I noticed the moon is in its fall in Mars's sign, Scorpio, while Mars is in its fall in the moon sign. That creates what is called a mutual reception. Mutual reception means that the 2 planets are in each other's sign. The moon is also applying to a trine with Mars in this case, which is very interesting as well. So they're in each other's sign. So even though they're both in their fall, they're in each other's sign and moving into a trine. Now, the moon often in a horary represents the flow of events or the turn of fortune, a turn of fortune or circumstance. So here we would seem to have what we would seem to have is a situation where Mars is suddenly, its stability along with the moon's ability somehow turn a bad situation into a favorable one. Okay. So what's happening in game 6 last night? The Raptors are getting beat. It looks like they're playing on the road in Golden State. Looks like they're getting beat. But then Klay Thompson, one of the Splash brothers, tears his ACL and is out, which is incredible because that's two of their all-stars, Kevin Durant and Klay Thompson, both sustaining major injuries that'll probably take them out for a significant amount of time into next season. It's that bad. So this was a really bad turn of events that ended up greatly helping the Raptors, and the Raptors went on to win. So in this chart, we can see a different iteration of exactly what ended up happening, in what was depicted in the original chart for the series, which was Mercury looks pretty well matched with Jupiter, is about to leave its dignity and exalt Jupiter. And that's exactly what happened. They sustained multiple injuries, multiple different people went down. And that's, by the way, that's Mercury in a double-bodied sign. And they lost, as a result, they lost their dignity, they lost their ability to win, and it ended up exalting the Raptors. And we can see it in this case because we have the moon as the flow of events flowing toward the Raptors, but doing so through the condition of mutual reception by fall. So through bad circumstances, the Raptors won. So when I judged this chart yesterday, I said North Node with the Mars is also beneficial or helpful. And then when you look at the mutual reception between Mars and the moon, you think, okay, well, they're going to get some help tonight. Even though something bad is likely to occur, it's going to be a plus for them somehow. And that's exactly what happened. So that is another just stunning example of horary. Every horary contest, if you're not into sports, right, you may not be into sports, but horary contests are like this. Like every year, I usually have election horaries, or if someone's competing with someone else, or, sports teams or whatever. It's a great way to practice. So I thought I would show you this, that it's kind of a fun example. And I'm sorry if you're a Golden State fan, but if you're a Raptors fan, you must be pretty happy today. All right, that's what I've got for you. And I'm also putting out today kind of a weekend update, so stay tuned for that. Okay, take care. Bye.